In a quiet little village, there lived an old man respected by everyone. But no one ever knew the terrifying secret he had buried beneath that ancient tree. One night, strange footsteps and the scent of blood led him back to the truth he had tried to forget his entire life. Who was waiting for him beneath those tangled roots, and why had the past he buried come alive once more? This story will make you question the meaning of sin and forgiveness. Until the very last breath, the wise old man walked slowly along the path of the ancient village. The evening sunlight streamed through the tall trees, their shadows moving as if they were alive. The wind whispered softly through the leaves, but within that silence, something made his heart beat faster. He stopped walking, his ears caught a faint sound. Light footsteps, coming from behind. The old man turned around slowly. His eyes searched through the shifting shadows. No one was there, but a strange scent drifted with the wind. The damp smell of earth, mixed with a faint metallic tang of blood. He remembered from long ago. He stepped back once. His eyes trembled. His heart pounded so hard. He could feel it in his face. He stood frozen on the narrow path, surrounded by the whispering trees. The air felt heavier now, thicker somehow, as if it carried secrets too old to be spoken. His wrinkled fingers tightened around the wooden walking stick he had carved decades ago. That stick had followed him through storms, over mountains, across rivers. But tonight, it felt like the only friend he had left. He looked around again. The fields that stretched beyond the path were bathed in pale orange light. In the distance, the roofs of the village shimmered faintly under the fading sun. He could hear the faint ringing of a temple bell far away. And for a moment, it brought him comfort. A reminder that the world was still alive, still breathing. But then came the sound again. Not footsteps this time, a low dragging noise, slow and uneven, as if something heavy was being pulled across the ground. He squinted toward the old banyan tree near the bend of the path. Its roots were thick, twisting like veins into the soil. He had seen that tree all his life. Yet tonight, it looked different. Darker, older, as if it had grown eyes in its trunk. The sound grew louder. The man's heart pounded against his ribs. And the evening wind felt colder now, sharper, cutting through his thin shirt. He whispered softly, "Who's there?" No answer, only the rustle of dry leaves in reply. He took a deep breath, his lungs shaking with the weight of years. Each inhale felt like fire, each exhale like dust. Still, he moved forward. The closer he stepped to the banyan tree, the stronger the smell became. The smell of damp soil mixed with something rotten, like meat left out too long in the rain. Then, he saw it. At the base of the tree, something glistened in the dying light. It looked like cloth, torn, stained, and tangled in the roots. He bent down slowly, his knees cracking with age. His fingers reached out, hesitant, trembling. The fabric was wet, sticky. When he pulled it free, a small piece of bone rolled out with it. His eyes widened. The bone was clean, almost polished, as if something, or someone, had gnawed it bare. He dropped it instantly, and it rolled into the grass. The wind stopped. The forest fell silent. Even the birds had gone quiet now. The air around him was still, so still that he could hear his own heartbeat echoing inside his ears. Then came the whisper, a voice, soft, hollow, and trembling like dry leaves. Right behind him. "Do you remember me?" The old man's blood froze. He turned, but no one was there. His throat tightened. He tried to speak, but his voice cracked. He took a step back, and his heel brushed against something soft. He turned his gaze downward. Another piece of cloth, another bone, this one larger, an arm, or part of one, half buried under the soil. Memories he had buried decades ago began to rise inside him. He saw himself younger, stronger, filled with anger. He remembered that night long ago. The storm, the shouting, the body he dragged into the woods, and the hole he dug under this very tree. His breathing grew ragged. He had thought the past was gone, swallowed by the earth and forgiven by time. But the earth never forgets. He stumbled back, his cane slipping from his grasp. It struck the ground with a dull thud. The voice came again, closer this time, as though it were speaking right next to his ear. "You promised you would come back." He spun around, and for a heartbeat, he saw her, a young woman standing beneath the banyan tree. Her dress torn, her face pale as moonlight. Her eyes were empty, yet inside them flickered something faint. Not rage, not sorrow, but recognition. The man gasped. His knees buckled. He whispered her name. The wind howled suddenly, and the air filled with the smell of wet earth and decay. The woman took one slow step forward. The ground beneath her feet did not move. She floated, almost weightless, as if the air itself carried her. He wanted to run, but his legs would not obey. He wanted to scream, but his voice was lost in the roar of the wind. She came closer. Her hand, pale and trembling, reached toward him. "You left me," she whispered. "You left me here to rot." Tears welled in the old man's eyes. He shook his head weakly. "I was young, I was afraid." The wind grew stronger, whipping around them in circles. The branches above creaked like bones snapping. The roots of the banyan seemed to pulse, as if something living was beneath them. Breathing, moving. The woman's expression softened for a moment. Then her face twisted, half sorrow, half fury. "You thought time would hide me." Her voice was no longer soft. It was deep now, echoing from every direction. The ground trembled. The soil cracked open around the tree. And from within, more bones began to surface. A skull, a hand, fragments of ribs. All washed pale by the years. The old man fell to his knees. He pressed his hands together, his voice breaking as he whispered, "Forgive me." But the whisper came again. Not from the ghostly woman, but from the earth itself. A low rumble, 1,000 voices overlapping. "There is no forgiveness." The banyan's roots began to move, slowly curling toward him like fingers. He crawled backward, his heart slamming against his chest. The wind howled louder, and the light faded completely. Darkness swallowed the path, the village, the world itself. Only the old man's breathing remained. Ragged, desperate, echoing in the night like the last beat of a dying drum. He could feel the roots brushing his ankles now, cold and slick like snakes. They tightened, pulling him toward the base of the tree. He tried to fight, tried to dig his hands into the earth, but the soil gave way beneath his fingers. The last thing he saw was the woman's pale face bending close, her eyes empty but glimmering faintly in the dark. Then her lips moved, forming words he could barely hear, words that sounded like both curse and farewell. "Now you will stay with me." And the ground swallowed him whole. The forest grew silent again. The wind died down. The banyan tree stood still, its roots wet with fresh soil. The next morning, the villagers found the old man's cane beside the path. No one ever saw him again. But at night, when the wind blew through the old banyan tree, some said they could hear two voices whispering beneath its roots. One full of sorrow, and the other begging for forgiveness that would never come. Years passed, and the story of the wise old man became nothing more than a whisper among the villagers. Children grew up hearing their parents warn them never to wander near the banyan tree after sunset. They said it was cursed. They said it remembered everything. But time, as it always does, softened the fear. The banyan tree stood tall through every season, its branches spreading wider, its roots sinking deeper, as if feeding on the memories buried beneath. One morning, a young monk from the nearby temple walked along the same path. He paused beside the great tree, noticing something strange. A small carving on the trunk. Old, faint, almost hidden beneath layers of moss. He brushed the dirt away with his hand. It was a name, the name of the old man. The monk closed his eyes and bowed. He whispered a prayer for peace, not knowing the story, but feeling the weight of sorrow that lingered in the air. A breeze passed through the branches, soft and gentle this time, and for a brief moment, the monk thought he heard laughter. Light, distant, almost joyful. The sound faded, and the forest fell silent once more. The banyan tree swayed slowly, its leaves shimmering in the morning sun, as if acknowledging the prayer. Perhaps, at last, the restless spirits had found rest, and the wise old man, who had once been bound by guilt and memory, had finally been forgiven by the earth that had once held his sins. In that quiet corner of the world, life continued. The wind carried stories, the trees listened, and the past, though never forgotten, became part of the soil, nourishing new life, and whispering softly to those who cared to listen.